Hello and welcome to this webinar, which is all about teaching Unit 1.6 Animated Stories. You'll find all the plans, resources and activities in the Teachers section, within the Computing Scheme of Work and within the Year 1 folder. You'll find Unit 1.6 Animated Stories, as other units in Purple Mash Computing, has a selection of lesson plans, lesson slideshows, a knowledge organiser, prior and future learning links, and a concept map and end of unit quiz should you want to use it. There are also handy resources. For example, if you want to create a display of the different icons the children will be interacting with within this unit, you can access the printable icons for 2Create a Story at the bottom of the screen. These are quite nice and easy for children to refer to so they can familiarise themselves with the different logos and icons they will be interacting with. And the resources needed for this particular unit is the 2Create a Story example, The Pirate Cat, which will be used in Lesson 1. A good place to start is to see how this unit fits into children's prior and future learning within computing. You'll see here that it builds on from Unit 1.1 when they first explore Purple Mash, and it will help them in years 2, 3, 4 and beyond in the other units to help build on the skills that they will learn within the 2Create a Story, making animations and sounds. The Knowledge Organiser is a handy resource to help scaffold the children's understanding of this unit, covering the key learning, resources, vocabulary, key images and key questions that they can interact with. It can be handy to download a copy or print this out, laminate it for the children to refer to, or you may wish to enlarge it and pop on a working wall for them to refer to. To find all the information you'll need to deliver this unit, click on the plan at the top left corner. Here you'll find all the information you need, beginning with the medium-term plan, showing that you've got 5 lessons for the children to work through. The children will have a clear list of aims and objectives at the start of a lesson and success criteria that they can refer to at the end. You can jump through to a particular lesson plan by clicking on the lesson number, and here we have further details as to the aims, the outcomes and the resources needed. You can also see the links to the National Curriculum Objectives as well for Key Stage 1. The lessons are broken down into different activity stages, and all of these are included as part of the slideshow as teacher notes or slide notes. As with all things though, you are free to adapt the plans as necessary. So if, for example, you have been doing some book work within your class, you've been looking at maybe a traditional tale or a specific story by a particular author, then by all means you can incorporate the content and the ideas of what you've been doing as part of your English and literacy lessons within this unit to give it greater context for the children. By opening up the PowerPoint slideshow for Lesson 1, what you'll find is if you want to change the content, just select Enable Editing and then Edit Anyway. And this will allow you to move content around, remove any that's not relevant and add your own. As with all slideshows within the Computing Scheme of Work within Purple Mash, you'll see that you have your teacher notes or slide notes underneath the main screen, so that when you're in presentation mode, you can see what it is that you are to be discussing and covering with the children. Every lesson as well will include an introductory vocab overview. So for example, you can see for Lesson 1, we're introducing some new vocabulary for the children, which we will then refer back to as part of the plenary to allow children to see if they can recall the meaning and the definition of these new words. Now, Lesson 1 for Unit 1.6 allows children to discuss how they usually read and access books. It encourages them to think about books that they might have at home or at school that have sound buttons, and it engages them with whether they've actually read a book on a computer. And a book that can be read on an electronic device is referred to as an e-book. It then allows children to be able to open up the pre-created Pirate Cat example story that's been made in the 2Create a Story tool within Purple Mash. You can click on the hyperlink and it will open up for you to read with the children. When it opens up, it's automatically in edit mode, so you can click through manually and see the content of the pages. But if you're wanting to be able to read the book with the children, select the play icon at the top of the screen. So here, sound animations will be included, and you can see the cats moving across the screen. Children can also see that they can navigate their way back and forth through the story by using the left and right arrow keys. And they can read the simple sentences that are on the screen. You're then prompted to discuss with the children the benefits between both traditional books and ebooks, what they liked about one versus the other, and can they think of any examples of different ebooks they've seen. Then the main activity for today's task is to get children to start creating an ebook that they will develop throughout this whole unit 1.6, so that at the end of this unit they will have an entire book that's been created to include text, graphics, animation and sound. The PowerPoint and plans recommend that children open up the To Create a Story tool from the English tools in Purple Mash and they save it themselves. However, what you might wish to do is to set this as a to-do for them, which they can then work on each week and save their versions so that it's all in the same place for you to monitor. At this point, it's personal preference whether you would prefer to set it as to do or allow the children to manually open up and save their own work. Just bear in mind that if the children are creating their own To Create a Story and saving it in their work folder, you won't be notified about changes they've made, and you will need to go into each child's folder individually in order to see the work they've done, to print, to comment and so on. Whereas if you do set it as to do, you'll be able to view all the children's work in one place. If I was to set this as a to-do, as a teacher I can navigate to the English section or the tools area here, select To Create a Story and set as a to-do from here. I can give it a title, and I can add the success criteria or further help and support and guidance in this description box, as well as audio function as well. If you want to upload any supporting documents, maybe a waggle or steps to success, or if you have been looking at a particular story in class that you want the children to structure or maybe imitate and innovate, then you can upload a copy of that story from wherever you've saved it, either within Purple Mash or from your device. Unit 1.6 requires children to work on the most basic version of the To Create a Story tool, the My Simple Story. In here, children can draw their own animations, enter text and add sound as well. This is where you might wish to incorporate any current work that you're looking at, any stories that maybe you're looking at as a class, and to give the children that greater bit of background information rather than them creating a story from scratch. So it's completely up to you at this point whether the children are allowed to create a brand new story or maybe you're imitating one that you're covering in class. For the purpose of this webinar demonstration, I will use a popular story about a very hungry insect, and I'm going to innovate it to make it my own. So to do that, the first lesson requires children to use the drawing tools on the left-hand side of the screen and create their own creature. If your story involves a character or a setting, then by all means they can use the paint tools to create that as well. If I'm going to add a character here, I'm going to have the very hungry spider. So I'm going to find a dark coloured pen and I'm going to draw my spider on the screen. The children can erase, undo, redo anything that they've done to help make sure that their picture is as they want to see it. So let me just check I've got the right number of legs for my spider. And I might just want to have some eyes here. go, and I can make the picture what I want it to be. The PowerPoint will also prompt children to be able to add some text to the page in the story, and indicating that children can click on the ABC section of the page here, and they can type in their first sentence. So, the spider was feeling very hungry. When children get to this point, this is where they will then need to save their work. If the To Create a Story tool was set for them as a to-do, all they will need to do is click on the exit button and then select save, and it will automatically be saved to the child's to-do folder. If I want to save it now, and this is manually, then it will prompt the child to find their own Purple Mash folder, or if you want them to save it to a class folder, they could do it from within there. And they can give it a name, for example, My Story. And once they select save, that's the first part of their lesson 1 in Unit 1.6 Animated Stories. And then the end of that lesson, it allows children to again see how they can save their work, and then they have the vocabulary overview. So this is where, if you're in presentation mode, you can just recap to see if the children remember what the definitions are. And when you tap on the vocabulary name, the tile will spin round and it will reveal the definition for you. And then children can review the success criteria. So that's lesson 1. Now on to lesson 2. The main focus for lesson 2 is all about children adding animations to their drawings within their ebook. So what they'll do in lesson 2 is they will add more content and more pages to their ebook, and they will start to experiment and look at the different ways in which they could add animations. So children will open up their saved work, they will be able to add more pictures and more pages, and then they will be able to have a play and apply different animation features to each page. The PowerPoint, as usual, you can enable editing and you can move things around. It introduces children to 3 new vocabulary today, so overwrite, animation and play mode, and it recaps the words that they previously encountered. So we revisit what we were doing last lesson, and then it explains to children how they will open up their ebook from last lesson. So whether your children opened it as a to-do, they'll be able to access it from their to-do menu, so you might need to edit this PowerPoint. Alternatively, if you are wanting them to open up from their work folder, it will show how children can do that by clicking on their work folder, navigating to where it says My Work, and opening up their story by double-clicking on it. Back on the PowerPoint, it will explain to children that they can add and move back and forwards between their ebook pages, and they can start to explore the animation tool. So today, this image, this icon, will be quite heavily featured. The fish with the green triangles is where they can click on the animation, and they can choose from a variety of different animation modes, like being able to move right, move left across the screen, move up and down. If they want to remove the animation altogether, if they're not happy with it, they can do that. So to go back to my animation here, my storybook, I've currently only got the 1 page. So should I want to do some more, I can just click on the next page here, and I'm now on page 2. So what I might want to do is I might think that my spider sees a fly, and maybe my spider wants to eat the fly. So I'm just going to draw a simple fly here. So I can put here, this fly looks tasty. And when I'm starting to explore the animation option, I can click on the little fish icon at the top of the screen. And if I select through the different options, you'll see that this window allows me to see a preview of what that animation will make my fly do. So I can make it swivel, move right, move left, move down, move up. And as I move down through the different animations, I've got some further to choose from as well. So this allows children to have 1 animation on each page. So by all means, don't place any limits on the children. You might have some children creating 10 pages, some children creating 2, but maybe just allow them time to create their picture, write their sentence, and then play their animation. So I'm going to add a few more pages to my storybook now. Now, as the PowerPoint suggests, once the children have added animation to the pages of their story, they can then watch their story in play mode to see the full effect. So I've added a few extra pages now, and if I click play, it allows me then to click through the pages, read the text, see the image, and the animation that's been added to each page. Now, if you're doing this via children manually saving, then the PowerPoint explains that children will need to save a copy and overwrite their original version. However, if this is a to-do, again, all they would need to do is exit off the page and click save, and it will automatically update the document to reflect their most recent changes. For me, if I want to save it, I'm going to manually override. So I'll click save and exit. It takes me to my work area. This is my story, and I'm going to just save it and it will overwrite, so I can press OK. So that means that when I next open it, it will have all of my most recent content showing. And then back on the PowerPoint, it will explain that the children can do some more if they've got time. It recaps the new vocabulary that they've learnt today, and then they can reflect on what they've done during the lesson. Have they been able to open their work, add animations, add pages, and then save it? And that's lesson 2. On to lesson 3. So the main thing with lesson 3 is about adding sound and audio to the children's ebooks. The children will also be looking at the next level up within 2Create a Story called the My Story mode, which allows them to add backgrounds and a few more little features. So the lesson plan itself allows children to add sound effects, add a voice recording, and add that music to the pictures that they've created within their books. Again, we've got the links to the National Curriculum Objectives, and the children will be opening up their work from last lesson and importing this into the new version, the My Story mode within 2Create a Story. So the new vocabulary in this lesson are sound effect, voice recording, drop-down menu and category, and it recaps on the previously covered vocabulary as well. So this explains to children that in the first couple of lessons they were looking at the My Simple story, which just allowed them to add an animation and text, and now they'll be looking at the My Story mode, which allows them to incorporate more backgrounds, more animations, advanced sounds, and so on. So the PowerPoint will pretty much guide you through the process on how children can access this new level. It will start off, if they have saved it manually, they can open up their story from last lesson and just double check all the content, make any changes if they wanted to. And then once they're happy with that, they can go and open up a new 2Create a Story. This time, the key difference being that they will click on the My Story mode. Clicking on this will open up a blank book, but if they want to import last lesson's work into it, then they can select Open. Again, all of this is covered in the PowerPoint. They can open up their ebook they made last lesson, and then it will now be in the new mode. So we have things like the background option, and we also have some more animations they can choose from as well. Back to the PowerPoint, it will explain to children how they can click on the different animations to add their own audio. It will prompt you to recap the Pirate Cap story so you can listen to the sound that was included, and children can discuss whether the sounds were relevant, whether they enhance the story, and so on. And then to be able to add sound, the PowerPoint will guide you through how you can add pre-made sound animations and also how you can record your own. So to go into my story now, if I wanted to add some sound to this particular page, what I could do is I could add audio by clicking the little microphone icon here. Now you'll notice I get taken to a little library of different audio options. As you can see, there's a drop down menu here. So for example, if I was to click scenes, then it might be that I find this nature scene. I can preview the sound by clicking on the play button. That sounds like quite a noisy jungle. Children can also record their own input as well. Again, this is covered in the PowerPoint. If you click on record, you will need to ensure that your microphone is enabled. But once it is, then children can record and record over their sound if they make any errors. So I might record, grumble, grumble, my tummy's so hungry. And when I press stop, I can listen back to it. Grumble, grumble, my tummy's so hungry. And if I press done, that's now being added to this page. So if I click on the play mode. Grumble, grumble, my tummy's so hungry. And then they can go through their book and add the audio feature onto all of the pages or just some of them. The PowerPoint will also show how children can add their own piano notation. They can add their own musical score to it if they're feeling particularly creative. To do so, they can click on the audio icon again, and this time they can select the piano option. So they've got the option to use a violin, a synth, or the piano, and they can have a play first. That was me trying to do the Jaws theme, like a hungry animal. But when they're wanting to have a play, they can then record it and then listen back to themselves. Maybe that sounds more like Jaws. If I click record, I can then listen back to it. And then if I want that added to this particular page in my ebook, I can click save. And then when I'm going through my story, I can click play. Grumble, grumble, my tummy's so hungry. So there we go. We're adding different voice or sound animations to the stories as well as the movement animation, and we've got the text and the image as well. So I'm sure you can imagine children particularly like this lesson. It can get quite noisy if you don't have a set of headphones for each child, but again, it's quite a nice way that children can really, think about what is appropriate to each page. Would it be their own voice animation? Would it be a sound effect from the pre-made different noises that have been added, or would they be best adding some music to it to create suspense or whatever? So this lesson, I'm sure it would mainly be around children having a play, changing the sound animations, collaborating and sharing ideas as to what works best for their stories. And as you refer through the PowerPoint, it will show you then how children can save their story. They can then recap the new vocab that they've had introduced today, and then just double check that they've met today's success criteria. So they've been able to open their previously saved work, adding sound to the page or multiple pages, adding a voice recording, and creating music. So you may just want to specify one of each, or you may want them to have voice recording for all pages. It's up to you and the level of challenge you want to give your children. Just make sure they do save their ebook at the end of the session, because they will be building on this next lesson. Now, lesson 4 is all about children making a story using the My Story mode on 2 Create a Story. Now, depending on your timescale and how you've been able to keep to time so far, you may wish to actually adapt this lesson and just allow children to add the extra features to the storybook they've already made. Or if you have the time and you think the children will be able to work through quite well during the pace of a lesson, then you can follow the plan as it is, which is where they will create a brand new story straight away from the My Story mode. The PowerPoint covers, as usual, the aims. This time they're adding backgrounds to the story, and they're going to incorporate the tools they've used in the previous lessons. Adding backgrounds, using the more specific drawing tools in My Story mode, changing things like the font style and the font size. New vocabulary in this lesson is background, clip art gallery and font. And this just explains to children about how they can open a completely blank story if you want them to start a new one, or this is where they could open up their story from last lesson and make the changes. So if I were to open up my story that's pre-made, what it allows me to do in the My Story mode is I can add backgrounds. So by clicking on the image icon in the top right hand corner of the screen, I can either draw my own background here and that will be updated. So for example, if I just wanted to do maybe a background of a large spider's web to make it look like my spider was waiting for a fly to fly past. Excuse my rather rushed drawings. I'm sure you and your children would do much better examples. But for example, you can draw your own backgrounds here that can then be incorporated onto the page. So if I press OK, I can choose whether it's added just onto this page or if it's added onto all pages. And in this instance, I want it just added to this page. And then my next page, I'm going to have a different background. And in this case, I'm going to choose a pre-made one. So to do so, I can click on the clip art icon in the top left corner, and I can choose from a selection of pre-created background images, or should you have saved any within maybe your classwork folder, children can incorporate a background from a space within Purple Mash, or you could upload one from your device. For now though, I think I'm just going to have my fly flying around this parkland. So I'll press OK. Again, I can choose whether it's added just to this page or to all pages. So you can get the children to either create the changes to the pre-made book, or they could be making a book completely from scratch. So they can use the icon for the image background, changing the backgrounds on all of the pages. And what you'll also notice, as the PowerPoint suggested when it comes through about how to change the drawing tools and the font for each of the pages in a book, if I go to my book here, I can change the font style by clicking on the capital A, and I can select, maybe our school looks at the cursive join handwriting formation. I might want to change the colour as well. And I can also change the size, make it smaller or bigger. So if I do that, I can now see that I've updated the font for this particular page. If I want to go back to the previous page and change the font style for there, then again I can choose from the list. So let's maybe change it to a different colour, different size. So as the pupil's own individual interest, or maybe if you have set a specific criteria for it to be bright and engaging, the children can update the font size and style and colour accordingly. And if children are wanting to add any pages, you can insert a page in the My Story mode at any point in the story. So maybe after it's eaten the fly, I could add an extra page here. By clicking insert, it asks me whether I want to insert after this page or before. So I'm going to select after. The fly tasted good, but the spider was still hungry. So here on the advanced tool mode for drawing, as is covered again in the PowerPoint mode, you can choose to use fill. You can make shapes, circular or angled shapes, and you can choose whether the pen size is larger or smaller, or thicker or thinner. So going back into the design mode now, I can then choose my colours and I can then draw accordingly. So if I wanted to maybe make my spider look a bit more textured, make it rather large here, then I can make him look like a bit of a furry spider here with its furry legs sticking out. So children will enjoy exploring the different styles and how they can make it a little bit more creative, a little bit more bespoke to the actual story. Are they wanting to make things look quite specific with textures, with patterns? And again, if they're familiar with other Purple Mash drawing tools like 2Paint a Picture, they will be familiar with how they can colour in backgrounds by choosing the fill tool. I chose the wrong colour there. So using that, it will fill all the background in this case. Unless I've obviously drawn a particular shape, it would then fill that shape. So lesson 4, moving through, the children will be able to retell a story or add to the story they've already created. They can then make sure that they save it, and then, as with all the other lessons, they can recap the new vocabulary they've encountered this lesson, and then just check whether they've met today's success criteria to add the background, to use additional drawing tools, and to change the font style and size. And then it's only the last lesson left to do. So the final lesson in this unit allows children to edit and finalise their ebook ready to publish. So they'll be looking today at how they can copy and paste pages and make any edits so that their book is just as they want it to be. The PowerPoint covers this as well. It aims to be able to use the copy and paste feature to continue and complete an animated story and to add their story to a class display board. We've got some new vocabulary today: copy, paste, features and edit, and then it explains about how they would need to open up their ebook from the previous lesson, and it explains what these two icons are for copying and pasting pages within a text. So within the story, if I was wanting to open up my ebook from last lesson, it might be that I would like to add some extra pages. So here, the spider was still hungry, so he went off to find more food. I want to copy that page and I want to add it elsewhere in the book. So if I click copy, that's been added to the clipboard. And if I want to pop it towards the end, so he ate the chili ice cream, I want to then paste that onto this page. So if I click this icon with the clipboard and the image, it will then paste that. So I've now got it in more than one place, and it saved me some time. Children can delete pages as well if they find that some of their overall narrative doesn't work. And what's quite useful in the My Story mode is you can get an overview of the different pages and where they fit by clicking on the planning icon at the top. So this allows you to see the numbers of pages in your book and to see where each one is. So if things need to be moved around or deleted or changed, you've got that overall plan of your story. So when children have finished their book, they've made sure it's appropriate, they've put all the right sound, they've put the right images, the right text, and changed things accordingly, they can then add it to a display board. So it will give you guidance within the plans that if you want to create a display board, then you as a class teacher will need to do that prior to the children sharing their work to it. So if I'm going to click the sharing tab at the top here, these are my current display boards, and I'm going to create a new one by clicking on the Manage Cog sign. To create one, I'm going to click on the plus icon, and I'm going to call this Unit 1.6 Animated Stories. I might add a brief description: read our amazing ebooks. Do you like the sound, images, and storylines? Now you can choose an image for this if you like, so you can add an icon or upload one. For now, I'm just going to choose a picture of the landscape. As per your school's acceptable use policy, you can choose whether children's names are hidden or not, or whether their class name's hidden. And you can make it so that only you as a staff member put the work on the display board. But for today, because it's asking the children to put their work on, I'm going to leave that unchecked. If you're particularly proud of your class's ebooks and you want to share them with parents and carers, you can make your display board visible to public via way of a QR code or an embed code that you could add to your school website, for example. Once your display board has been created, that Get Links tab will become live, and then you can copy the embed code or the QR code accordingly. If I just want this for my class 1, then I can click on class 1. If I want several classes, I can choose several classes, or if I want all the school to be able to see, I can click all school. And when I click save, that display board has now been created. I can get the links for that display board from the pop-up here. And now that that has been created, children, as per the PowerPoint, will be guided to how they can share their work to the display board. For me to do it, I can click on my work folder, click on my story, and I can either share it via the three dots here and send it to the display board, or alternatively, when I'm within my ebook, I can click on the top left hamburger menu, select the share icon, and then I can send it to the display board here. The children will then see a list of all the display boards they have access to. I've now got this Unit 1.6 animated stories, and I can press OK. If children are to send it to a display board, you will be notified via the alert bell that an item is waiting to be approved, and then you would then need to go into edit mode to approve it. Because I'm on as an adult at the moment, it automatically gets approved. But to go into edit mode, you can just slide the slider and filter it via all the unapproved items, and you can multiple select and approve them all in one go. But this allows you to give the children context to share their work in a nice, safe, interactive environment, and they can all read each other's work by clicking on the activity and opening it up. Again, I'm on as a teacher at the moment, so I'm seeing it slightly altered, but if I was going to access it as a child in my class 1, I can click on the sharing tab, select animated stories, and this is how they would then view each other's work.
Grumble, grumble, my tummy's so hungry.
And so on. So hopefully that's given you an idea as to how you can teach Unit 1.6 animated stories. Definitely a great way to get children engaged in sharing each other's work digitally. I hope you found this webinar useful, and all the very best in planning, teaching and sharing the books that your children have created using this particular unit. Thanks for stopping by.